Manchester City at the moment are undeniably one of the best teams in world football. In the last 15 years, they've won 8 Premier Leagues, 3 FA Cups, 6 League Cups, the Champions League, the FIFA Club World Cup, and also the UEFA Super Cup. One of the best managers in the world, one of the best teams in the world, one of the best squads in the world. And it seems all of the money in the world. Over the summer, they sold their backup striker Julian Alvarez for €75 million to Atletico Madrid. That just shows the depth of the squad if they can sell a backup striker who, honestly, is never really going to get in front of Haaland for that sort of money. There's levels, and Man City have too strong a squad. As I'm sure you all know, the Premier League suspect Manchester City of breaking financial fair play regulations 115 times in a 9-year period between 2009 and 2018. The Premier League's financial fair play rules are designed to ensure that clubs pretty much spend what they earn. You can get around that by potentially inflating how much you're earning or hiding how much you're spending. According to the Premier League, Man City broke the rules over 9 seasons by allegedly failing to provide accurate financial information. Before we go into specifics, that in a nutshell is kind of the situation. Now, there was previously an investigation conducted by UEFA for breaching their financial fair play regulations. However, in 2020, the Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled that the sanctions placed on the club by UEFA were not justified, overturning City's 2-year European ban. Now, there's a few main topics to go over. First of all, what exactly are the allegations and what rules did they actually breach? What actually happened? Because everyone throws around this 115 figure, not really knowing what it actually means. If they were to be found guilty of any of these 115 charges, what sort of reprimands could the Premier League enforce? And also, what is the effect on today's game? Now, let's get into it. I'm not going to go over all 115 charges because we would, quite frankly, be here forever. But I'm just going to go over some and try to give a bit of a variety so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. Among the charges against Man City are that they did not fully disclose the financial remunerations that were made to one of their managers over a 4-year period. The suggestion is that there was a secret contract, so one of the managers was getting paid much more than financially stated. Now, the types of charges are basically split into 5 different headings. Now, the first one we have is a failure to provide accurate and up-to-date financial information from the 2009-10 to and including the 2017-18 Premier League season. Now, the allegation is that they breached this 54 times. Failure to provide accurate financial reports of player and manager compensation from 2009-10 to and including 2017-18. So there's an alleged 14 charges there. Failure to comply with UEFA's regulations, including UEFA's club licensing and financial fair play regulations. So we've got 5 charges there. Breaches of Premier League profitability and sustainability regulations from 2015-16 to and including 2017-18, with allegedly 7 charges. Failure to cooperate with Premier League investigations from December 18 to present, 35 charges. So what's important to note here is 35 of the 115 charges are for failing to cooperate with the Premier League's investigation, which is very interesting. So in a nutshell, the Premier League are accusing Manchester City of making the numbers look a bit better, not providing accurate data, not providing accurate numbers. And of course, in terms of financial fair play to maximise for their benefit, failing to provide accurate and up-to-date financial information would be relating to, well, making the income seem a bit better and making the expenses seem a little bit lower. That way they have more money to spend in the eyes of financial fair play. Now, this has been an ongoing saga since initially back in 2018. While nothing official, there was leaks and allegations even back at the end of 2018 in November. And by March 2019 is when UEFA launched the formal investigation. We all know that's kind of been overturned, but the Premier League still seem to think that there's some wrongdoing. Now, the expected date for the verdict to be reached is summer 2025. So we can easily be waiting the best part of another year. Summer 2025. These charges relate back to 2009. I know things take a long time, and of course, none of this was even uncovered until relatively recently. However, the disparity in dates is a huge issue. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we do, if you are enjoying this video and are interested in other football content, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video. Also, leave a like, it helps the video in the algorithm. Now, before we get on to potential punishments, I think it's pretty interesting to say, and I don't mean this, I'm not trying to be biased, but what I will say is that the fact that a lot of the charges on Man City, of the fact that they're not cooperating with the Premier League, and they've also launched, you know, their own case against the Premier League with their own lawyers, I completely understand that if you believe that you're innocent, you've got a right to protect yourself. But with so much in the media about these 115 charges and so on, surely it would make more sense to clear your name first and then do what needs to be done. Now, from my perspective, not saying this is correct because we don't really know yet, that seems like something that somebody who's guilty would do. But I guess time will tell. Now, we have to take a look at potential punishments for Manchester City if they're found guilty. Now, the Commission can impose the following punishments. Suspend a club from playing league matches. Points deduction. Recommend to the board that the league matches be replayed. Recommend to the board that the league expels the respondent club. Order compensation. Cancel or refuse registration of players. Conditional punishment. Order the club to pay costs. Make such other order as it thinks is fit. In other words, they can kind of do whatever they want, but if we just go from the list of the, I guess, kind of main punishments that they could potentially impose, they're not going to suspend Man City from playing Premier League matches. They're not going to recommend that they replay all league matches between 2009 and 2018. They're not going to expel Man City from the Premier League. They're probably not going to cancel registration of players. And in reality, what we're probably going to see is either point deduction and or a fine. If they're found guilty of 115 charges, I would not like to think what the point deduction would be, or what it should be, you know, compared to other cases. Now, something that isn't mentioned on this list is, I know there's been a lot of talk about having, like, the Premier League titles that they've won stripped. However, that ultimately doesn't solve the problem, and I don't really think that's fair to the players that have gone ahead and won the Premier League. It's not really like it's their fault that the club has not really managed them correctly. And also, from the perspective of a club who's finished second in these seasons, ultimately they've been second best. Would you really want to accept a Premier League winners' medal from years ago, just simply because, you know, the other team's been mismanaged financially? I don't think so. But we can kind of move on from the potential punishments to the impact. Now, Man City virtually had no success before the 2009 season. If they're found guilty of these 115 charges, then majority of these have contributed towards where they are today. Everybody else has already been either punished or played by the rules. So why is it fair that Man City have built success upon basically cheating the rules if they are to be found guilty, but everybody else has kind of remained stationary or progressed at a much slower rate? All we have to do right now is take a look at a club like Newcastle. Incredibly rich owners. However, playing by financial fair play, they can't just go out of the way to buy the best players in the world. Now, of course, this is because of financial fair play, and they know if they breach financial fair play, the ramifications are just not going to be worth it. So the argument is, why is it fair that Man City have basically built the club on these alleged 115 charges, with them helping towards where they are today, and why is it fair that they're still able to play and progress, built on basically breaching rules? And if it is that they're found guilty of these 115 charges, then it's a massive failure on the Premier League's part. First of all, they failed to realise that Man City were reporting fake numbers. And second of all, if they are found guilty in 2025, that is 16 years that they would have been building a club, winning trophies, on basically cheating. And the very real impact is Man City beat West Ham 3-1 at the weekend. Now, it's all a massive knock-on and butterfly effect, but if Man City didn't have Haaland in that game, they wouldn't have scored a goal. Now, how were they able to afford Haaland? Well, because through financial fair play, they freed up the money to, well, be able to buy him. And buying Haaland didn't mean that they breached financial fair play. You know, the books were still balanced. But why is it that they were able to buy Haaland and not breach financial fair play? Well, contributing factors could have been these 115 charges. Not saying all of them, but some of them. That's where the problem lies. Now, all of this could be nonsense if it turns out that Man City have not done anything wrong. But for UEFA and the Premier League to accuse them, realistically, there's got to be something there, even if it's not all 115 charges. Now, the mess that you've got is if you give Man City a ridiculous point deduction and they get relegated, or even if they just simply get relegated down to the National League. I don't know what's going to happen, so it's hard to speculate. Well, that's just going to be such a mess, considering they have the best team in the world at a stadium that seats 55,000. If they manage to hold on to the players, it's just not going to make any sense. And let's be realistic, a fine to Man City, regardless of the amount of money it is, it's effectively dropping a penny on the floor. It's not even worth picking back up. And that lies the biggest problem with these alleged 115 charges. It's the impact that these potential breaches could still be having on the game. And the fact that we're not even going to potentially have a verdict until in a year's time. Realistically, Man City are probably going to win another Premier League. There's a good chance they're going to win the Champions League. They're probably going to win one of the Cups. There's a good chance they're going to win another treble. Like I said before, I know it takes a long time to get everything together. And obviously Man City are fighting back against, the Premier League. I can imagine it's pretty difficult, but it's still having an effect today. Like, if they are found guilty of these 115 charges, it is going to be pretty mind-blowing. This is a really interesting topic, and, until we actually get a proper verdict, we're not going to know what's going to happen. We're not really going to know what should happen. But it'd be interesting to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Well, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then maybe you should check out my previous video. It should be on the screen now. We took a look at football's disappearing iceberg. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.